Welcome back. You're listening to the discussion Modernizing Government, Cleaning Out Your Application Closet, sponsored by KPMG on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today is Daryl Roberts, the Program Executive Officer of the Defense Logistics Agency. Now, Daryl, before break, we were talking a little bit about DevSecOps. And one of the things you brought up was this idea of the users, but also you said you got to get the logistician ready to maybe use some of these low-code, no-code platforms. So walk me through a little bit, how are you putting the pieces in place, whether it's through the DevSecOps piece or just the training in general to get employees going?
Thanks for the question, Jason. So one of the things we're doing from a DevSecOps perspective as we set up our software factory, we're taking lessons learned from across the federal government. So one of the partners that we've spoken with frequently is the Air Force and their Platform One. And how they've set up DevSecOps within the Air Force. So we're leveraging lessons learned there in terms of setting up our factory. Once we have the DevSecOps factory configured, there's a couple of programs that we have that we like to utilize. One being the low-code platform, where we can start training those citizen technologists on how the low-code technology works so that they can start being able to say, hey, which of my workflows are really simple IT needs that I need can I do on my own that we now can manage from a PEO perspective. And then the other is robotics process automation. We call it RPA program. We've made a huge breakthrough here in the past year of where before we had a lot of attended bots where you literally, there were no cost savings, right? You had to dedicate a person and a machine to the bot so that as the bot was doing the work, you were monitoring the bot. In the past year, we've went to unattended bot mode where we've solved the certification aspects of providing certificates for the bots to perform on their own 24/7. And so we've completely transitioned our RPA program to now where every bot that we produce is an independent bot that does work 24/7 on behalf of DLA. And so our next phase that we're working on now with one of our military support commands, aviation, we're actually helping train their users to do RPA design development on their own and then partner with them to actually deploy that in an active environment. And so those are the type of concepts and things we're looking to achieve through DevSecOps and low-code, no-code type of technology.
Interesting that you actually had somebody to attend, as you said, attended bots. I mean, their job was probably boring because you gave it to the bots, and now you're going to say, okay, now watch the bot do your old job. I mean,
right.
that must not have been any fun for those poor folks. So I'm sure they're glad to get out of that attended bots. What was the difference? Was it just a matter of time and comfortability, knowing that, oh, that bot is doing the same process over and over and not making mistakes, or was there something else that happened that allowed DLA to move from attended to unattended bots?
The biggest issue was the certificate accreditation oversight of the bot. So how do you, in a secure fashion, allow the bot to operate on your network without making yourself vulnerable to hacking? The thing about IT, we say you always have to be prepared for the hack. You know, everyone's trying to get in. And so we wanted to make the bot as secure as possible in an unattended mode was the long pole in the tent for us. We were pretty confident in the first couple of runs that the bot was doing what it was supposed to do. But our biggest challenge was the certification of the bot to run on the network on its own. So once we were able to work with our cybersecurity team on that aspect, as an agency, we were comfortable to move forward.
Obviously, good news all around. One of the things you talk about was you mentioned the challenge of the bots. Let's take a half a step back and talk about application modernization a little bit. Are there some challenges you're facing with that? I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty good strategy. You have the ERP moving, you have some of the ServiceNow efforts, but and you have a prioritization plan with a governance process. It seems like you have a lot of the pieces in place, but are there other challenges that you still have to overcome?
Oh, absolutely. Any project comes with challenges. And I would say, like most federal agencies, budgets aren't growing, they're shrinking. You're asked to do more with less. And so balancing our risk reward type of scenarios of how fast you modernize through an agile fashion while also ensuring that mission doesn't fail. The mission here at DLA, we can't have a bad day. If we have a bad day, the warfighter has a bad day, the nation has a bad day. And so, number one for us is ensuring day-to-day operations do not fail. And so, balancing sustainment of current operations with modernization is one of our biggest challenges. And then also, you talk about change management of the workforce. When you bring in automation and things of that nature, where the culture looks at it as, okay, well, if you have a bot doing this, what's next? Um, I think part of what we've been working with our workforce to understand is that these bots are allowing us to free up our workforce to really solve the complex issues that we have as an agency and really do that in-depth analysis that they may not have been able to do because of some of the day-to-day tasks that they've been asked to do just to keep operations running. And so I'd say culture is something that we're constantly making sure we're paying attention to, ensuring we have a change management strategy. How do we, in an agile process, iterative process, bring in new capabilities and move that to the forefront to where they control it more so than waiting for us to deliver it from a PO perspective. So I think culture and just finding that balance in terms of agile delivery are our two biggest challenges as an agency.
We hear this a lot. It's never the technology, it's always the culture change. That's the hardest piece. What goes into that change management strategy when you start talking about the app rationalization? Maybe there's an app
Right.
that you've used for 20 years that it's going to go away, and that takes
Right.
somebody to get their head around that. Wait a minute, I got to learn something new. Wait a minute, I've been doing this for 20 years. What is part of that
Right.
change management strategy?
So I think it's just having the uncomfortable conversation, right? I mean, some part of change is allowing someone to voice their position, voice their frustration, and then how are you going to help mitigate or make them more comfortable in this change process? So I will say we're having uncomfortable discussions with our functional community and even within our IT community. Between PEO, CIO, cyber, there's always the tension of I want to deliver faster, but you want to make sure your cyber security is in order. So I think a big piece of this change management is just have the uncomfortable conversations and what are the things that are critical from each person's point of view, each part of the agency's point of view to these are the things that would make you not buy into the change, and how do we address those so that we may not be able to solve all of them, but how do we acknowledge it, how do we mitigate that risk that you see and come to a conclusion on what the right way ahead is. I don't think there's one path to modernization. It's going to differ from organization to organization, but you have to have the conversation to understand what the pain points of your workforce and your organization are.
One thing that also I imagine is helping is DLA's had a lot of success with the robotics process automation. They've had a lot of success in kind of modernizing applications, even from just the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, whatever we're going to call it. Has that
Right.
also helped change the culture of people are saying, oh, I don't have to do that repetitive work anymore. I don't have to do that quote unquote low value work anymore. Is that also, if you will, winning hearts and minds?
I think the quick wins are helping. And I think also one of the things that we're looking to do as we go throughout this journey, we're actually previewing the IT, right? So as we award these contracts and the new technology, we're bringing these software providers to the end user to say, okay, proof is in the pudding. Tell them how you're going to help, how you're not going to help, and let them ask the questions up front to the software provider and not just be a filter. We're there to serve the customer. We're there to enable. We call ourselves an enabler to the business here at DLA. And so I think the quick wins help, but I also think affording them the opportunity to ask questions directly to the software providers also helps with that transition.
It's actually a good segue to the other piece I want to make sure we touch upon, which is a lot of people think about application rationalization, and as I think as you said at the beginning, they think of it modernization, getting off legacy. What's the opportunity for DLA around the other, I think, side of the coin, which is cost savings, cost avoidance, employee efficiencies we talked a little bit about, but also better customer service? Does it make it easier for the commands to use DLA? Does it make it easier for vendors to work with DLA? Is that the other opportunity between cost savings, cost avoidance, and the customer service side that you're also looking at as part of this broader discussion?
Absolutely. I mean, even for ourselves, when we talk about management of this IT inventory, um, over 3 years ago, we had over 1,300 systems in DLA. So just imagine from an accountability and management perspective, the different flavors that we had to manage internally and then try to communicate that to the customer, internal to DLA, as well as our other DoD federal government partners of how do you use the systems, how do you get support. And so I think the rationalization is going to help that because we're really looking at it. We're not talking applications anymore within DLA. We really talk about business capability needs. And so we're shifting from managing applications to managing by business capability area. What's the mission and function that you're providing? What's the business capability you need to perform that mission? And then from a technology perspective, does it matter if it's, an IBM product or Microsoft product, an SAP product, Oracle, et cetera? What's the capability that you need to utilize? And we provide that. I think within the federal government space, we get married to applications and systems, as you mentioned earlier. Hey, I've used the system for 20 years and you're making a change. But if we focus the user and ourselves on what capability or function task do you need to perform, and we show them how they're able to do that more efficiently, that's only going to help in terms of cost savings and removing duplicative capabilities across the enterprise. So that's a driving factor in terms of what we're looking at here is where do we have duplicative technology, not because we actually need it, but because people weren't aware of what was in the inventory and how we could leverage it. So we're going to see some immediate savings just from an IT perspective, moving to these commercial cloud environments, leveraging more commercial applications versus government developed products. Um, but then we're also going to start seeing productivity increases, efficiencies across the functional workspace as well.
Daryl, we could talk about shadow IT and duplication for a whole different show. But unfortunately, we are out of time for today. So let me thank my guest, Daryl Roberts, the Program Executive Officer of the Defense Logistics Agency. Daryl, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you, Jason. Enjoyed the conversation and glad to be back anytime you have me.
We will have you again, I'm sure. I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the discussion Modernizing Government, Cleaning Out Your Application Closet, sponsored by KPMG on Federal News Network. Tune in next month for a new show in the Modern Government series. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search KPMG.